My name is NonStopAntonio, and today we will be breaking down The Flash Season 9, Episode 5. In this week's Flash episode, the Red Death storyline has finally been concluded. It had its good moments, however, in the end, it wasn't as amazing as I hoped it would be. So let's jump into The Flash, Episode 5. Welcome to NonStopAntonio, where I talk about everything nerdy. I love Marvel, DC, and anime, and if you do too, I hope you enjoy this video. In this week's episode of The Flash, the story of Red Death has come to a close. Overall, the episode had its strong moments, but it didn't quite live up to the hype that I thought it was gonna be. The pacing felt a bit off, and some of the plot points were a bit weird. However, there were some great action scenes, especially the speed fight, because it was probably one of the best speedster fights we've gotten in a long time now, something from back in the earlier seasons, and it looked great. Most of the performances by the cast were amazing. However, Javicia Leslie kind of fell flat, especially when she was screaming like a child. And I like this actress, however, I did not like what she was portraying on screen, and I blame the writers for that. Overall, while it wasn't the best episode so far from the season, I still look forward to what's to come from the rest of the season. The major problem I did have with Red Death herself, even though I liked the suit looked amazing, and when she had the voice modulator on, she was menacing, she was scary. She was supposed to be this big threat, but as soon as you take the mask off and it's just Ryan Wilder, it doesn't work as well. I felt like the lines were very poor when she was out of it. Whenever she was screaming in someone's face, it just felt really off, and I did not like it at all. And it just felt like a child throwing a tantrum over and over and over again. And I do feel like Javicia Leslie did the best job that she could do with what she was given, and I just wish it could have been better. But that's what I thought about the episode overall and what Red Death was. But let's jump into the breakdown and everything that went on during this episode, because some of the stuff was rough, but there was still stuff I did enjoy. I just think this was probably one of the weaker episodes compared to the earlier episodes. Like when the episode starts off, Red Death removes all of the cops from CCPD, and then you have Kramer who's facing off with them, and she uses her mimic powers, which is cool to see, and she uses Rainbow Rager's powers to kind of make the rogues kind of lose it for a second, but Red Death ends up metacuffing her, and then nothing else comes from it. You would think that this big villain, Red Death, who is a killer, would just kill Kramer. She's close to the Flash. What way to hurt the Flash is to kill his allies? Nope, she just leaves her. I know she has a weird sense of justice where the criminals need to be punished, but she's still kind of a psychopath, and you would think that Red Death would just kill anyone in her way, and so that she can maintain order, but she doesn't, and it's like, there were no stakes. She didn't kill anyone. It was just, oh, we're gonna tie you up. No, kill someone. Like, we need those stakes. We need her to be a threat, and because of the fact that she just didn't kill anyone, there wasn't any good threat during this. The whole mental projections didn't make much sense either, because the whole point of Red Death is you have this speedster who is going around and taking out criminals themselves. They're killing them. They're ending their lives so that they won't be a threat to anyone else around them. However, she's just using mental projections to do that? No. I think it would have been cooler if you had her get actual speed from the Speed Force, and that was her plan, so that she could quickly run around and take people out, instead of having mental projections that she used from Grodd, which I'll get to that in a bit. I did not like what they did there, and again, it just doesn't make her that threatening. Like she mentions back in Season 7, how Vish used Savitar killing Barry to make him hurt, and it actually almost killed him, and they flash back to that as well, which it was cool to get a Season 7 reference, which is probably one of the worst seasons in my opinion, but it doesn't make any sense, and I don't like that they were using these mental projections to kill people. I would have rather it been her going around and doing what Reverse Flash did and vibrate through them. I think that would have been a lot cooler and worked a lot more for the character than doing mental projections. I knew Chillblaine wasn't gonna die. The whole point of last episode of them going away right before he died was to be like, oh, it looks like he died. But in all comic book logic, if you don't see a body, they ain't dead. But again, like I said earlier, the Red Death didn't kill anyone. Anyone important to the Flash. You would think that Red Death would have killed Chillblaine to get to the Flash. You know, give him hope that Chillblaine's still alive, but then just have his body there. But they didn't. She let him get away. She didn't even take him out. She knocked down all his rogues when they went to save him, after the rogues almost didn't go and help because they were scared. But then when Keone said she would go do it, they're like, oh, we gotta stand up because this girl with no powers will do it, and they won't, and we won't. So I didn't like that writing at all, and I think they could have done like an amazing job if they had Red Death kill Chillblaine in front of Barry. That would have been like, oh shit, Red Death is a bigger threat. He killed someone that was close to Barry after Chillblaine kind of got his redemption arc last episode, and they just didn't do that. It just felt really lazy. But I did like when they came back and they realized they have no chance against them. The rogues all go off on their way to be with their loved ones, Hotness with his son, Hartley with his boyfriend, and then Goldface saying, I'm going to go apologize to Amulet, which I like that moment. I think this season has made me like Goldface a lot more because before I hated the character and now I actually like him. But let's get to probably my highlight of the episode was seeing Grodd come back. I really did like that Grodd came back this season. I love that the scene of Barry being like, I need your help to save the world was talking to Grodd. So my theory was right. I said it was going to be Oliver because of Leanne Yu, or it was going to be Grodd. And it was Grodd, which I thought was pretty cool. However, it didn't really make much sense at all for any of the reasonings because we haven't seen him since season 6 after Crisis. Because Barry went and teamed up with them, gave him the Speed Force powers for a bit, and Grodd got inspired to be a hero, realized he was wrong, and then he went off to find his people because he watched during Crisis the multiverse get reborn. He was aware of all of it. He saw that Gorilla City was put onto Earth Prime. However, the way they explained it in this was the fact that apparently he went to go find them. He couldn't find them. All he found was gorillas who weren't as smart as he was, which she said they lost their sentience after Crisis. But it still seems weird that he saw Gorilla City, but somehow didn't see non-sentient gorillas. And he just is alone. He's been alone for 3 years, and that's why he wanted to work with Red Death, because Red Death could give that to him, just like how she could have given some of the stuff to the other characters. And it's just like, I don't think that works, because the way they explained it in Season 6 was that he saw Earth Prime, Gorilla City, which means there is a Gorilla City on Earth Prime, and then him not being able to find it just doesn't make sense. And I feel like they just forgot about their own continuity and said, no, we're gonna write this and then be like, well, it's just here, convenience-wise, for him to come back, which I think it would have been better if Barry went to him for help first because he needed his psychic powers. I think that would have been a lot better than what they did. Again, they make really dumb choices sometimes in the show. However, it did lead to a really good moment with Gorilla Grodd because you have Barry being that hero, trusting his enemy, believing that they're still good in him rather than just assuming he's turned evil again. And I like how Joe's the one that reminds him that, like, you trust people, you inspire people, and you don't just give up on them. And then that makes Barry go to Grodd and trust him, and then Grodd turns around and helps him, gives Barry the little bit of speed he needed to gain his speed back because Red Death siphoned it. And I like Barry turning around to him and being like, if we have hope, there's always another way. So Barry wants to help Grodd find Gorilla City, help him find gorillas like him, and I like that about it. However, this is disappointing that this might be the only time we see Gorilla Grodd this episode, and he really didn't do much. And this leads into the final fight with Red Death, and like I said earlier in this video, I like the speed battle. It looked cool, and I think the visuals were really on point, and that was the best part of the episode, was the speed battle. With Barry running around with a shield, blocking speed batarangs that Red Death was throwing at him, having her use a, like, lightning grapple to, like, swing and kick him, all looked amazing. And this is, again, one of the better speedster fights we've seen in a long time. But this one was on par with, like, Season 2 with Zoom. But everything afterwards was kind of a letdown. Like, Barry almost gets his ass kicked, which makes sense. Red Death is supposed to be this bigger threat, and it was cool to see him kind of be weakened for a second. But the rogues coming in was a good moment. Having Goldface chain up and grab her arm, cool. However, right after, they get their asses whooped. And then you have Batwoman come in, miraculously, out of nowhere. Literally no indication to where she came from, no explanation. She just comes, nullifies Red Death's speed, and then kicks her ass. Like, okay, yeah, cool. You have Batwoman coming in to kick her ass, but still, where did she come from? She's been missing for this entire time. You set it up that it looked like Red Death had her captive, or someone had her captive, but instead, you don't explain any of that, and she just appears, convenience-wise, and kicks his ass. I don't like what they did. And then at the end of the fight, you have Batwoman being like, is it always this crazy in Central City? And everyone turn around and be like, it's a Wednesday. That, I know it's a meta joke for the show being on a Wednesday, but goddamn, was that line horrible. The whole ending to the fight was so disappointing because Barry running was the best part of it, and it just led to nothing, where I feel like they just didn't know how to finish the fights. They're like, hey, well, just have Batwoman come in, no explanation, she kicks her ass, boom, it's over. I don't know what they were thinking there, though. At least out of all of this, we finally have Batwoman meeting Team Flash, because she hasn't met him at all this entire time. Like, she was in the Armageddon crossover, but she didn't actually meet Team Flash because that was a future version of Ryan Wilder. So she never really met Team Flash before this. And I did like Chester geeking out because he gets to meet a Bat-themed character, which was fun. However, one of the lines that came out of it later was a cool reference, but also made no sense. Because Ryan Wilder talks about how she's a fan of Iris. She likes Iris's work, and you know, she should come out to brunch sometime with her, Kara, and Nia. Which doesn't make any sense, because why would Kara and Nia go to brunch with Ryan? They've never met her. They don't know who she is. We have no indication throughout the Arrowverse that they've met before, and there's no reason to why they should. Kara and Nee are both reporters, Ryan is not. The only time Kara has met a bat was back in Crisis, and that was Ruby Rose. That was the Kate Kane version, so I don't understand why Ryan is buddy-buddy with them. After all of that, we get a 2-week time jump. So now we're a little bit into the future, where Joe is now leaving Central City. He's moving away with his daughter, letting Cecile stay in Central City so she can be a hero, and then goes and sees them on weekends, which is just kind of weird. I guess they just didn't want to get rid of Cecile this season, so Joe wanted to go off and do his own thing, but they didn't want to get rid of Cecile, so she's staying. I've said the last few weeks that I don't like the Chester and Allegra romance. However, I did like this little moment from this 2-week time jump where we have Chester Riz talking to her and going and giving her a kiss, and everyone in the room shocked because they haven't seen them together. And I like Barry's like, when did this happen? Just like, that was a fun moment. I like that moment. And then led to the next moment where Iris is pregnant and Keone sensed it. She's like, yeah, you're pregnant. Which shows that Keone has powers. And earlier in the episode, we see Keone use powers because when she kisses Chilblain, who's at the brink of death, it shows some frost around her mouth and he wakes back up. So it makes sense for her to have meta powers, and the whole next episode is going to be her exploring the meta powers. That was pretty much the episode 6 trailer, was them going around and trying to figure out Keone's powers, which I'm hoping it's not a filler episode and it's leading into the next plot. But it will be cool to find out more about Keone and what this new character Daniel Panabaker is playing. But overall, final thoughts of this episode. Red Death story could have been better, and I felt like they treated it a little bit poorly. It started off really strong, but then ended weak. Batwoman coming out of nowhere made no sense, with no explanation, was really dumb, and they should have at least had some kind of explainer, like, oh, Batwoman being like, hey, I was trapped here, I got out, rather than her just showing up. The Barry and Grodd was probably one of my favorite parts of the episode, next to the Speedster fight. I'm still looking forward to the rest of this season, because I know there's some good stuff supposed to be coming, and we are going to see a bunch of characters we haven't seen in a while come back. I totally thought that a bunch of the Arrowverse characters were going to come back prior to this to help fight Red Death, but I guess Red Death wasn't this big threat we all thought it was going to be. Let me know what you thought of this final episode with Red Death and the whole arc overall. What were some of the Easter eggs or details that I missed in this video, because I thought I covered them all. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like my Flash videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button to stay up to date with the rest of the season. Plus, next week I will be covering Superman and Lois starting next Tuesday, which will come out on Wednesdays. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you all later.